Coming up on this episode of Poker Jesus.
Our opponent checks it over to us. We bet a little more than half pot, putting out $44 into the $80 pot. Our opponent makes the call. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, and once again our opponent checks. We've picked up the nut flush draw to go along with our aces up. Hello and welcome to episode 11. I'm Anthony, and I appreciate you stopping in for my PLO vlog. It's crazy to think a few weeks ago I had under 100 subscribers. Now we're at over 350 and we continue to grow. And Sir Purs is bapping at me again. Hello, my friend. Wanted to mention Matt Dale on Twitter had asked me about bankroll management, discussing that, and that is a good topic to discuss here. A lot of newcomers to PLO might not realize that PLO typically plays one level higher than its no-limit hold'em counterpart. So if you're playing 2-5 PLO, it's going to play closer to 5-10 no-limit hold'em. And I believe conventional wisdom in the hold'em streets, if you're playing for a living, is to have 20 to 40 full buy-ins for the game. PLO is going to be a little bit higher variance and swingier. And so I typically recommend at a minimum to have 30 buy-ins, that's full buy-ins, up to 60 buy-ins if you really want to have that comfort level. It really depends on, if you have other sources of income that you can depend on to help replenish your bankroll, or if you're completely relying on poker only, obviously you're going to want to skew higher for your bankroll needs. This game can be swingy as hell. Back in 2021 in August, I had my best month ever. And then I immediately fell off a cliff for 2.5 months. I went on a downswing. I gave all that profit back and then some. And it wasn't like I was even playing bad. I mean, I was, I'd limp repot with pocket aces against players who know that when I do that, I've got the aces. And this was, pot committing pre-flop raises, and these guys were stacking off with shitty kings. I mean, king 4-3, king queen 5. They were just trying to hand me their money, and they were finding every king in the deck. I mean, it was ridiculous. So, sometimes no matter how well you play, and don't get me wrong, I make plenty of mistakes, but no matter how good you play, sometimes variance is just going to kick you in the teeth. And it happened to me for 2.5 months. And, there was definitely, a few spots in that period where, I played bad and, maybe I went on tilt a few times. But overall, I was playing fantastic and I was just still getting destroyed. So the more buy-ins you have, the better you can weather it financially and mentally. And, in addition to that, you're going to want to have at least 6 months of living expenses socked aside separate from your poker bankroll to depend on, because, you go 2.5 months and you're paying to play poker. How are you paying your bills? So definitely you're going to want to have that as a consideration as well. And on top of that, in addition to the poker bankroll and the 6 months of living expenses, make sure you have a plan B and a plan C to fall back on, whether that's going back to work part-time or full-time. There's no shame in it. A lot of really successful professional players have gone broke and then they've, rebuilt and returned to the streets. So, be okay with that. There's no shame in moving down in stakes, in adjusting your buy-ins so you're buying in a little bit less and, you're maybe playing lower stakes games, easier games, to help you, rebuild that confidence and to get back, to the winning times, Even better is if you can find some passive sources of income or a side hustle, whether it's, rental income or some passion project that you have, some skill that you have that you can monetize, a YouTube channel, or, I can build, custom computers and things like that. So it never hurts to have other things that you can do outside of poker, because the reality when you're playing poker for a living is that you're not going to want to play poker as much. When I was working for someone else, managing a trucking company, when I went to play poker, poker was my escape from work. So I loved it. I looked forward to it. I couldn't wait to play. And I wanted to play as long as I could, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, tournaments, this, that, the other thing. You look forward to it because it's your escape from work. But when it is your work, it loses some of that luster. And don't get me wrong, I still love poker. I still enjoy the hell out of it. But I'm not looking to play 14-hour sessions. I don't want to. I want to get in, make my money, and get out and enjoy my life. And part of the reason I switched to playing poker for a living was I was looking for a quality of life that I didn't have working for someone else because I was working too much. Now, this upcoming episode, we're going to be putting on our cape and playing the hero in a number of spots. And that's something I've gotten more comfortable with over the years as I've played. You get into spots where, you start to get this spidey sense that something's off and you feel like you should call or you feel like you should fold. And sometimes when you're first starting out, it's hard to trust those instincts, and you don't listen to yourself. You don't listen to that voice or that feeling, and you wind up, making bad folds or bad calls. And so I've learned to just kind of listen to that voice and trust my instincts and trust myself, because you'll get into spots where you've been in those spots before and you've encountered that bet before or the mannerisms from the opponent. And so your inner dialogue is telling you, hey, this is what that means. And when you can really trust that and believe it, you're going to make more money, whether it's saving money when you make a correct fold or when it's, making a hero call like we do in some spots in this video. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I'm way off and my hero calls are complete disasters. But overall, it's something that I think has benefited me, learning to trust that voice. So this episode, we're going to have some hero calls. Some might be right, some might be wrong, but we'll discuss them all. And I've rambled way too long, so let's get into it. 8-handed, playing 5-10. There are multiple limpers to us in the cutoff, holding ace 8-6-4 with 3 clubs to our ace. I like playing suited aces, although this is on the weaker side. While there is connectivity between our cards for straights, we do have multiple gaps, and having 3 clubs hurts us a bit. Still, with all the limpers, I'm fine coming along and trying to see a flop. Unfortunately, the aggressive button has other plans and raises it to $85. With 3 limpers calling the raise, there is $375 in the pot, and we have to call $75 more. Getting 5-1 on our call, we only need around 17% equity for this call to be break even, and I think we have it. Plus, we close the action, so we make the call. We go 5 ways to a flop of 8-7-5 rainbow with 1 club. When it checks to us, we have the second nuts, and we block hand combinations that could contain the nuts. Likewise, the preflop raiser, in theory, should usually be weighted to more Broadway-oriented holdings. So it's unlikely if someone flopped the joint, they'd risk it being checked around and allowing a bad turn card to hit. I expect we're best, and I opt to lead for roughly half the pot by betting $220. The original raiser on the button calls, which is a little unexpected, and then the hijack comes along as well. The turn brings the 9 of diamonds. The hijack checks it over to us, and while we've improved to a 9 high straight, we now have the third nuts, as the 10 and jack high straights are possible. In addition, we don't block the diamond draw, so we really don't have any way to improve our hand. With $1,110 in the pot, and facing 2 opponents, one who has over $1,700 remaining, we really want to opt for pot control, and hope to get to showdown cheaply. If we were just against the preflop raiser who only has $748 remaining, I'd be ripping it in here and taking my chances, given the stack to pot ratios. But with the third guy in the mix, it increases the chances we've been outdrawn. When the button checks, we're feeling pretty good about our hand. But then the river falls the jack of diamonds. While we aren't overly concerned about someone making the backdoor queen 10 straight here too much, the running diamonds could be an issue. The hijack checks, and while we could make a blocker bet here, I don't see a ton of value in it. We're unlikely to get called by worse. Someone with a high diamond in their hand could read us as having flopped the straight and bluff us out, and anyone who made the flush is likely to look us up. So we check it back. Now the button shoves for $748, And when the hijack snap calls, we have a pretty easy fold. Well, it looks like we did have a reason to fear the Queen 10 because the button shows down the Queen 10 9-7 double suited. However, he's taken himself to Value Town, as his river shove was only getting looked up by someone who made the flush on him, and unlikely to extract value from much else. So he's essentially bluff shoving here rather than value betting, in my opinion. The hijack shows down the 10-9-8-2 double suited, and rivered the flush to win a sizable pot. We're playing 3-6, 7-handed, and Under the Gun opens it up to $21 on a stack just shy of $500. There are two callers, and we're in the big blind holding ace-ace 5 deuce suited in spades to our 5. On a stack of $1,800, we cover the rest of the table and opt to repot, hoping to isolate the preflop raiser, as our hand isn't going to fare well multi-way. We make it $108, but it looks like everyone has a $108 hand, as we get 3 callers. We see a 9-4-3 all-spade flop. While we flopped a flush, and an open-ended straight flush at that, we're out of position facing 3 opponents, any of whom could have a higher flush than ours. We decide to check and see what develops, and it's checked around. The turn is the 2 of diamonds, and we make a small stab of $100 into the $435 pot. We may have the best hand, and we don't want to let the board pair, but at the same time, we don't want to commit ourselves to this hand if one of our deeper stacked opponents shoves. We get 2 callers, and the river falls the 9 of hearts, pairing the board. Facing 2 opponents here, including a solid player Under the Gun +1, we check and hope to see showdown. We do manage to get it checked around, and the solid player shows us down the Queen Jack Jack 8 with the Queen High flush. 7-handed playing 3-6, there's an early position limper, and then the cutoff makes it $27, sitting on a short stack of around $250. On the button with $1,600 in our stack, we look down at the Ace King King 7, double suited in clubs and hearts. This hand will play a lot better heads up than against the field if we have to win with just our pair of kings, although the 2 flush draws gives us some strength if we pick up multiple opponents. Plus, having position on the button is huge in all forms of poker. We repot to isolate, making it $96, but that doesn't seem to deter our mostly shorter stacked and bad opponents from coming along, as the small blind calls off 20% of his stack out of position facing 2 raises. The original raiser calls, leaving himself $153 behind. On a flop of Ace Jack 4 Rainbow, it's checked to us. There's $300 in the pot, and our largest stacked opponent only has $383 behind. We have 2 backdoor flush draws, top pair, top kicker, and a backdoor straight draw. Our decision here is pretty automatic. We're never folding. If someone flopped 2 pair on us, we still have potential to get there. There's little reason to get cute because any bet we make we're never folding to a raise given stack sizes compared to the pot. So we go for it all and bet $300, and they both fold. We're 8-handed playing 5-10, Under the Gun on a stack of 2,000, min raises to $20. There are 2 callers, and we're in the big blind holding Jack 6 3-3 double suited. While it's only $10 more, and we're getting over 7-1 on a call, we're going to be in the worst possible position deep stacked against multiple opponents. This is a fold, and we're really going to flop well enough to have the winning hand and to get paid off. Yet somehow we convince ourselves, hey, it's only $10. And this, my friends, is how you leak money in PLO. We make the call, and the flop falls 7-5 deuce with 2 clubs. This is actually a pretty solid flop for our hand and our range of hands from the blinds. We should be leading out here, as it's unlikely to have helped our opponents much, unless we're up against a higher flush draw or a set of 7s. We block some of the straight draws, so this is really our opportunity to take the hand down now. But instead, we check. The original raiser bets $42 into the $85 pot, and there is 1 caller in the hijack, and like a doofus, we call as well. The turn is the 8 of clubs, and we check it over. Our opponent bets $140 into the $211 pot. The other player folds, and we just don't believe him and make the call. The river is the 10 of spades. Once again, we check, and our opponent bets the full pot of $491. Well, if we didn't believe him on the turn, I guess we still don't believe him, and we make the hero call with the 4th nuts, only to be shown Ace 10-10-6 with the nut flush. This is why you just fold shitty hands like Jack 6-3-3, whether you're in position or out of position. They aren't even going to make second best hands, and we just burned almost $700 by making a poor decision because it was only $10. Remember, even though your opponents are bad, that doesn't mean they can't get good.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Are you tired of losing to the unwashed masses who play any suited six-gapper like they're aces? Looking for a way to narrow the skill gap and give yourself an even playing field? Then you need to get yourself a copy of the hottest new poker book to hit the market. Ranked 12th on the Boise, Idaho Examiner's must-read list for half a day, until it was delisted due to a misprint. Play poker like the schmoes. You'll learn all the advanced concepts your opponents are employing against you. Secrets like, if you can't call, raise. And if you play every hand until showdown, you'll win every hand you're supposed to, and you can never be bluffed. Just imagine, the most accomplished pros and the most daring bluffers will be powerless to stop you, as you call down on every street. You'll completely eliminate their ability to bluff you out of pots, forcing them to have the goods every time. Just imagine removing bluffing from your opponent's playbook. There's no counter to this strategy. It's that powerful. How much would you expect to pay for such a powerful tome of knowledge? $50? $1 million? How about just $9.99 plus $128.63 postage and handling? But wait, that's not all. The first 100 orders will also receive our handy pre-flop range chart, giving you an easy-to-reference tool so you can make the right decision every time. What's that, you say? There's even more? That's absolutely correct. Order in the next 15 minutes, and we'll send you the Play Poker Like the Schmoes strategy book, our pre-flop range chart, and a bonus copy of Play Poker Like the Schmoes to share with a friend. Once you know your friend is employing these strategies, you'll know every move they're going to make and can counter it by doing the opposite. They will be helpless against you. Just visit Play Poker Like the Schmoes webpage for orders.org.biz.usa and order your copy today. Still 8-handed at 5-10, there's a raise from under the gun to $35, and we're next to act holding King, King, Queen 6, suited to our Queen and Hearts, on a stack of $1,261. Queen high flushes aren't anything to be excited about, and the 6 dangler hurts our hand as well. If we were shorter stacked, I could see repotting and trying to get stacks in with our kings, but here we don't want to overly commit with a hand that has some issues. We really only have the pair of kings and the king-queen combo to be excited about. So while it's playable, it's not a hand to go nuts with at this stack depth. We make the call and go 5 ways to a flop of 4-3-3 rainbow without any hearts. When it checks to us, we may have the best hand, but facing 4 opponents, it's not impossible to run into someone playing ace-3 suited and having us beat. And some of these guys will play all sorts of trash for a raise, so we could run into someone with 5-4-4 deuce. We've seen it before. We opt to keep the pot small, and it checks around. The turn is the 9 of clubs. While we have the king of clubs blocking the turned flush draw, we still don't see a ton of value in betting. It's unlikely we'll squeeze much value out of hands we have beat, and getting raised would be a disaster. It's checked over to the button, who bets $140 into $185. When it folds to us, we consider the situation. If our opponent had flopped trips or a full house on the button when it's checked to him on the flop, he's going to bet, rather than risk allowing someone with a pair in the hole to outdraw him for free. So the only hands he's representing with his bet on the button are flop quad 3s or a turned full house of 9s full. Then we need to ask ourselves, if he had either of those hands, why bet so much on the turn after everyone checks? It really doesn't look like any of us can call a bet that large, so you'd expect him to take a smaller sizing in the hopes of extracting some value. His bet looks like he doesn't want action, and we decide to make the call. Heads up to the river, which falls the ace of hearts, probably the worst card in the deck. While I feel fairly confident we were ahead on the turn, it's possible our opponent hit a 3-outer on us here. We check it over and he bets $310 into $465. Since we're pretty sure our opponent doesn't have a 3 in his hand or 9's full, the only thing we have to worry about is a random ace that got there. And if they have just aces up in this spot, do they really want to bet so big and then be fairly committed to calling if we check raise all in? Just like last hand, I'm not a believer and I go into hero mode and call it down. Fortunately, this time our spidey senses were right, and our opponent shows down the King Jack Jack 4 for a smaller 2 pair than our own.
Oscar, you will not get away! I am really pissed off! Adios! Johnny, you busted.
It's folded to us on the button in a 5-10 8-handed game, and we look down the ace, queen, jack 10 suited in diamonds to our ace. In this spot with the field folding to us, the deck should have plenty of Broadway cards left, and likely to flop. With a very strong hand and expectation of improvement, plus being on the button so it looks like a steal, we pot to $35 on a stack of 1,800, and the small blind sitting on over 2,400 defends. The flop comes down ace 8-8 rainbow. Our opponent checks it over to us. We bet a little more than half pot, putting out $44 into the $80 pot. Our opponent makes the call. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, and once again our opponent checks. We've picked up the nut flush draw to go along with our aces up, but we hate to bet and get raised here and fold away our equity. We opt to check to avoid being pushed off our equity, as well as to give the impression that we may not have an ace, allowing our opponent an opportunity to bluff the river with a weaker hand that we'll feel comfortable calling. The river is the 9 of diamonds, and our opponent again checks it over to us. While we've improved to the nut flush, if we bet and get check raised, we'll want to puke, as we have solid showdown value. Likewise, we're hard-pressed to find a lot of hands that we beat that will call a river value bet here. The board coming paired with the 8s and then having a 6 and 9 run out could easily match up with a middle rundown our opponent would defend from the blinds. So figuring there aren't a lot of hands we can extract value out of, but betting and getting check raised would mean we'd have to give up our showdown value, we opt to check it back. Our opponent shows down the 10-8-7-4, which is a pretty shitty hand to defend out of position from the blinds, and while it's likely we might have gotten him to bite with a river value bet since he had the full house blockers and river to straight, I still feel this overall is one of those perfect scenarios where he just happened to have a hand we could have gotten value from, but in the long run the range of hands will not favor a value bet in this spot. We are 5-handed in a 5-10 game, and after one limper in the cutoff, we lip in the small blind holding ace-10-5-3, suited in spades to our ace. We go 3 ways to a flop of ace-7-7 with 2 hearts. We check, and it checks around. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, and we check again. The cutoff bets the full pot of $30. His bet doesn't really make much sense. What did he check behind on the flop that improved on the turn? He'd likely bet an ace or a 7, or a flush draw on the flop when checked to. The 6 doesn't really change anything, so I just don't believe he's got the goods, and once again I put on my cape and I make a hero call. The river falls an innocuous 2 of clubs, and we check again, giving our opponent additional rope if he wants to continue bluffing, which is what we expect he is doing. He bets the full pot of $90, and we snap him off, and he shows us the Queen 8-8-5. So while he limped this garbage hand, he did turn an open-ended straight draw, which makes sense for him to bet. On the river, however, he probably realized his only way to win was to bet. The problem is, if we had a flush draw that whiffed, we're folding to that bet. And most decent aces that called the turn are likely calling his river bet, given the pot isn't overly large. So we managed to extract value out of our opponent by letting him hang himself.
I just have one question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So, what happens if, I don't know, I do this? And now you're just another useless fucking blind guy. This must be some kind of a joke. Ashley. What made you think I would ever allow a cripple into the 7? For fuck's sakes, Ashley, don't look at him, look at me. Ashley! Look at me.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. One big piece of announcement, my wife and I are actually in the process of selling our home here in the Tampa area. The market here is nuts, and we can essentially get 3 times what we paid for the house about 5 years ago. So it's kind of hard to pass that up. We are looking to move outside of Florida this time, possibly Georgia, Carolinas, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana. We looked at Texas, but the prices there are pretty jacked up too. It would be nice to be closer to, some of the poker clubs out there, especially with the PLO action in Austin, but price-wise might not work for us. So our deciding factor is really going to be the house. We're looking to get something bigger than what we have now. We have about 1,300 square feet, and we can essentially, flip this here in Tampa and get out into a state that's still warm, still has a nice climate, but has some better housing prices, so we can move into a nicer house. And that's really going to be the biggest factor, is the house that we get in the area. The possibility of playing live poker nearby is certainly a consideration, but not the main factor. But it would be cool if we luck out and we select an area where I do have access to some live PLO games that I can film, because I would love to be able to do that, but not the deciding factor. So we'll see a few months down the line where we end up, but that is in the works right now. And aside from that, that's going to wrap up this episode. I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.
And now a word from Vanessa K. Polk, semi-unretired heads-up legal expert.
After watching a video like this, sometimes I'll like it, sometimes I'll leave a comment, and sometimes I'll subscribe. Sometimes I'll even do all three.